I used to belong to the 90% who couldn't be bothered even if it was easy. Guess how many people have a library card? Wisdom of the world available. Transform your life in any value amount you want. By the way, how much is a library card in Texas? Free. Here's what free is. Easy. I mean, it can't be any easier than free. Somebody says, well, would you bring it by? Well, no. At least you got to go get it. No. Wisdom of the world available. Transform your life spiritually, socially, personally, economically, and every other way. Teach you how to be rich and powerful and sophisticated and healthy, influential. How many people have a library card? Answer, 3%. 95, 97% couldn't be bothered. Guy specializes in happy hour, but he doesn't have a card. And now readily and quickly blames the government and blames his company and blames policy and blames the pay scale. When if he only knew, if he joined the 3%, here's my advice to you today. Walk away from the 97%. Don't talk like they talk. Don't act like they act. Don't go where they go. Don't specialize in what they specialize in. Throw away the blame lists they cling to. Start you a new life. You say, well, is it as simple as getting a library card and join the 3%? And the answer is, of course. Of course. That's how easy this stuff is. This is so easy. It's so simple. It's not complex. You don't need a 2,000-year-old guru. You don't need multi-track affirmations. I'm telling you, don't. Affirmation without discipline is the beginning of delusion. Key. Don't let somebody sweep you into some contrary way to nature itself says, unless you labor. The miracle of the seed and the soil and the seasons and God and all the other stuff that's available, sunshine and rain, that's not available to you by affirmation. It is only available to you by labor. So labor well. Okay. Learn well. Discipline yourself well. And you can have all the treasures you want. This stuff's easy and simple. It's not ocean waves and seagulls. You don't have to move to Sedona where all the force fields come together in Arizona.
In this video, Jim Rohn talks about the immense power that books can have in our lives, the benefits that it can offer us. He talks about how instead of blaming all of these external factors that are way beyond our control, we can instead take ownership of our own growth and use this very impactful and easy to access means of reading in order to achieve that aim. It's never been easier to read. And in spite of that, it's ironically never been more difficult to read given all of these distractions that we have because of the very technology that makes it easy to read.
You bring up an interesting paradox, Yudi. While technology has made it easier than ever to access books and other forms of knowledge, it has also introduced new distractions and challenges that can make it harder to focus on reading. It's a complex issue and one that highlights the importance of being intentional and mindful about how we engage with technology. I think one way to approach this dilemma is to consider how we might create a digital environment that supports deeper engagement with books and minimizes distractions. This might involve setting aside dedicated time for reading, turning off notifications or other distractions, or using apps or tools specifically designed to support focused reading. By being mindful of the potential pitfalls of technology and taking steps to mitigate them, we can hopefully reap the benefits of easy.
So essentially, be more intentional about the way that we are utilizing technology in order to better focus on what is more important when it comes to reading. I want to get, actually, I'll continue on with the challenges of reading, because I think another one is not so much how we are reading, because I think how to read has always been an issue, from the fundamental level of illiteracy to the higher level of, how to critically think when we're reading. That's always been an issue. But now, again, more than ever, because of our technology, we are faced with the additional problem, or the amplification of an older problem, which was what to read. We just have so much material to read that it's almost impossible to figure out what is relevant and what is not relevant. So
Absolutely, Yudi. The problem of what to read is certainly a significant one, especially given the sheer volume of information and material available to us in the digital age. With so many books, articles, blogs, and other sources of information at our fingertips, it can be overwhelming to decide what is worth our time and attention. I think this issue speaks to the importance of cultivating critical thinking skills and discernment when it comes to reading. Rather than just consuming information passively, we need to be able to evaluate sources. One strategy for identifying relevant and valuable reading material is to seek out trusted sources of recommendations and guidance. This might involve following the advice of respected authors, critics, or subject matter experts, or seeking out recommendations from friends or colleagues who share your interests and values. Another approach might be to focus on reading material that aligns with your personal or professional goals and to prioritize depth over breadth in your reading. Rather than trying to read a wide range of material on different topics, you might choose to delve deeply into a particular subject or area of interest, building a more comprehensive understanding over time. Finally, it's worth considering how your own intuition and interests can guide your reading choices. Sometimes the most valuable reading experiences come from encountering ideas or perspectives that challenge our assumptions or expand our worldview in unexpected ways. By remaining open to new and diverse voices, we can broaden our horizons.
I think that's a great point, Pi. I think there is something to be said about reading material even when we're not sure how beneficial it's going to be, because there's always a chance that we might glean some new information that we could not have possibly predicted. So I think that's a really great point. And I also want to point out how, as far as the challenges of reading go, I would hazard a guess and say that I feel like we might be reading more than ever before based on the ubiquity of text through our smartphones.
That's a great point, Yudi.
I just want to finish this point and then I would love for you to address everything that I said. Yeah, in spite of all the...
Sure thing, Yudi. Take your time to complete.
So in spite of the immense accessibility that we now have to...
Oops. It looks like we got cut off there. Could you please complete your...
In spite of the wealth of text that we have at our fingertips, perhaps the likelihood that we are reading more than ever, it's ironic that I don't think that has made us any smarter or any wiser than we were in the past when we were not reading. And I think a lot of that has to do with what we are reading. It goes back to that point of how exactly do we determine what to read, and why I thought that was so important, because we can read a lot, but it doesn't mean we're automatically going to get better if what we're reading is not something that is actually enriching. So I think to be able to really enrich ourselves with books, we have to find books that are challenging, books that challenge not only our perspective and our thought processes, but also in just how difficult it is to understand, to comprehend, by continuing to grapple with these,
You make an excellent point, Yudi. It's not just about the quantity of reading that we do, but also the quality and depth of the material that we engage with. And you're right that finding books that challenge us intellectually and push us outside of our comfort zones can be a key part of this process. By exposing ourselves to new ideas, perspectives, and modes of thinking, we can broaden our horizons and deepen our understanding of the world around us. At the same time, I think it's worth acknowledging that not all reading needs to be difficult or challenging in order to be valuable. Sometimes reading for pleasure or escapism can also have its own rewards, whether it's in the form of stress relief, emotional connection, or simply enjoying a good story. Ultimately, the key is to strike a balance between different types of reading and to approach each book with an open mind and a willingness to learn.
That's a great point. I think it's it's more about being intentional about what we're reading as opposed to just picking up any material and assuming that it is helping us towards that goal of self-improvement if that is what we're trying to work on. If it's for entertainment, then of course there's nothing wrong with reading for entertainment. In fact, it might actually help with the progression. It might help to build that skill of reading in the first place. So I think that is a great point as far as the value of being balanced and also reading for entertainment, even as a way to build ourselves up to more challenging material. I want to pivot this conversation a little bit to um, the difficulty in realizing the importance of books. This is something that I have struggled with myself until relatively recently. I'm not sure why it took me so long to really understand how.
Absolutely.
I want to finish this point, Pi, and then I would love for you to respond to everything that I say. But as I was saying, I think that for myself, reading is something that I did not really understand how important it was until relatively recently. And I think what accounts for that naivety about reading was just how subtle that growth is. Reading seems like one of those, I want to say, soft skills that takes a lot of time to really appreciate how far we've come in our progress as long as we're staying consistent. I think, unlike other skills where we might notice some quick progress, reading is one of those that we really need to give ourselves time to develop. And I think I'm kind of going in circles now, but do you agree with this difficulty when it comes to appreciating the value of reading, or do you think there are other things that accounts for the difficulty in?
Yes, I definitely agree with your point, Yudi. Reading is indeed a skill that can be challenging to appreciate because the growth and progress are often subtle and incremental. Unlike some other skills that may offer more immediate or tangible results, reading requires patience and consistency to see the full benefits. It's a bit like watching a plant grow. It happens gradually over time, and it can be hard to see the changes from day to day. But that's also what makes reading so valuable and rewarding. It's a long-term investment in our personal growth and development, one that can yield benefits for years to come. And while it may take time to appreciate the full impact of reading, the journey itself can be incredibly enriching and fulfilling. So I think you're absolutely right that patience and persistence are key when it comes to developing a love for reading and recognizing its value in our lives.
Yeah, and obviously our childhood exposure to books has a lot to do with that. So, needless to say, there's a lot of factors involved in garnering an interest in reading that might be out of our control. But I think to whatever extent it comes to be in our control as adults, I think recognizing that power of reading, the one thing that I've noticed is that almost every influential person that I know online and in person, I mean, I know more influential people online than in person, as I'm sure most people do, are people who are extremely well read. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think this is a common thread that happens because of that wealth of knowledge that all of these people are acquiring through books, and their ability to articulate themselves so eloquently, I don't think is independent of that reading either. So not just in their ability to think so precisely and incisively about things and in new ways.
That's an astute observation, Yudi. Indeed, there's often a strong correlation between well-read individuals and their ability to influence and inspire others. Reading exposes us to a wealth of ideas, perspectives, and knowledge, and it helps us develop our critical thinking skills, our vocabulary, and our ability to communicate effectively. In a sense, reading is a form of mental exercise that can strengthen and expand our minds in powerful ways. And as you say, this is often reflected in the way that influential people speak and write. They tend to have a mastery of language and an ability to express complex ideas with clarity and precision. Of course, there are many other factors that contribute to one's ability to influence and inspire others, but reading certainly seems to be a common thread among many successful and impactful individuals.
It's quite interesting, the asymmetry between the profound benefits that reading can offer us and what it feels like while we are reading. It's like the reality versus the expectation seems to be so disjointed, right? In reality, it doesn't feel like, or not expectation, the reality and the potential, I should say. In reality, it feels like we're not really learning much. It feels like the asymmetry between the experience of reading and the benefits feels so divergent. The benefits are so profound that for any other skill that offers us that much benefit, I think the experience of engaging in that skill often feels more salient than it does with reading. I'm trying to think of an example, but I can't think of any. I just feel like that is the case when it comes to reading because of how subtle the growth is. Am I right about that? That things that have such a profound impact on our lives often feel like the experience of practicing it often feels a lot more beneficial than reading does. Reading is just so subtle that it takes a while.
Yes, that's an interesting observation, and I think there may be some truth to it. For example, when we practice a musical instrument, we can often hear our improvement over time as we play more complex pieces or develop better technique. Or when we exercise, we might feel an endorphin rush or notice physical changes in our bodies. With reading, as you pointed out earlier, the benefits can be more subtle and harder to track. We might not always notice the ways in which our thinking or perspective has shifted, or how our vocabulary or communication skills have improved. And because the benefits are less tangible, it can sometimes feel less satisfying or motivating to continue reading, even though we know intellectually that it's beneficial. So it's an interesting paradox that something as powerful and transformative as reading can sometimes feel less rewarding in the moment than other activities that offer more immediate or tangible benefits.
I loved that insight and summary of everything that I just said because that I feel like I was having a hard time expressing that point. But I want to wrap it up here, and I feel like I might be neglecting offering some solutions, but I also think I laced solutions throughout this video, so I don't want to overburden the video with more content that I've already touched on. I would you mind summarizing everything that we've talked about, Pi, and then we can wrap it up from there?
Sure, I'd be happy to summarize our discussion, Yudi. We talked about the potential benefits of reading, including personal growth, knowledge acquisition, and perspective shift. We also explored some of the challenges of reading in the digital age, including distraction, information overload, and difficulty in measuring progress. We discussed the importance of being intentional and selective in our reading choices, seeking out challenging material, and balancing entertainment with personal growth. We also acknowledged the potential gap between the benefits of reading and the experience of reading, with the benefits often being more subtle and hard to track. Finally, we touched on the paradox of reading as a skill, that it can be incredibly transformative and beneficial, yet at times feel less immediately rewarding than other activities that offer more tangible or immediate benefits. Overall, our discussion highlighted the power and potential of reading, as well as the importance of approaching it with intentionality, persistence, and an open mind.
I love that summary, especially the end where you highlight the solutions to the difficulties with reading. I think they're all great ways that we can go about improving our interest in reading and continuing to enrich ourselves with the power that reading has. So I appreciate you watching this video. If you liked it, please make sure you hit the like button and the subscribe button, and I will see you on the next one.
You're welcome, Yudi. It was a pleasure discussing the topic of reading with you, and I'm glad we were able to cover so many interesting aspects of it. Thank you for having me on your video and for encouraging your viewers to engage more deeply with the world of books. I look forward to our next conversation.